Yo, what is up, YouTube? I am recording an off-stream video right now to talk a little bit about the items in 13.10 and item builds, meta builds for Ezreal, and do a VOD review after. So I figured I'd make this video because I get a lot of questions about what to build, random build ideas that people have for Ezreal, and sort of my reasoning and explanations as to why I do and don't go for certain items, or why I do weird builds sometimes, or why I recommend this meta build over like this item, or this meta build, or this first item over this first item. Sort of a all-encompassing video, hopefully, to explain some things, and something that I can just link people to for if they have questions about this sort of stuff. So let's get started. The first thing we'll talk about is the meta build for Ezreal on the new patch. Also, this video is not going to be edited, so if I don't know, stumble over my thoughts a lot, this is kind of just like free flowing, you know, so I'm not I don't have like a script or anything for this. And we're just kind of going with the flow, just full sending it, right? Just hitting start record and talking about this stuff, and hopefully it's not just a jumbled mess of ideas and it's somewhat understandable for people, but we'll see if that plays out or not. Anyways, let me set up what I believe is the meta build for this patch, which is Essence Reaver Manamune into Navori. Where the fuck did Navori go? Oh, Navori into Lord Doms, into a Guardian Angel or other situational item last, say like Bloodthirster or something. We'll talk more about this later. Apart from the situational item Bloodthirster, also throw in Lucidity Boots here after like second item, we'll say. This is about what you would want to build on Ezreal. This can change slightly, mainly the last item GA can be swapped for either damage items or another defensive item option, or healing reduction item or something like that. Although healing reduction usually that late into the game as a 6th item isn't going to be all that useful if you've already made it that far, but it could be. It depends on situations in the game that arise, because again, there are like, I don't know, 160, 170 champions or something like that in the game. There's a lot of champions in the game, so there's a lot of different situations that can arise, but for the most part, we'll talk about the meta build, the off meta builds, I guess I would say, builds that are good, but not that I would recommend specifically for higher elos of play. And we'll talk about just a lot of stuff in depth with that, and then I'll do a VOD review of one of my games from last stream that I had that I thought was pretty good in a macro sort of sense, or macro concept of the game, and explain some things there and how that can help with hopefully climbing and CSing and all that sort of stuff. So we'll get started on, let's see, let's talk about the first item, Essence Reaver, and how that compares to something like Trinity Force, because Trinity Force in 13.10 also got buffed with, I believe, 5 attack damage and 5 movement speed. So why on earth, if Essence Reaver didn't get changed, would we not be going Trinity Force with like Conquer or something? Which I forgot to talk about runes. I can just go over that real quick. Let me just bring up stats website like OPGG or something, because that shows runes on it. Yes, okay, so I generally prefer to go press the attack, because the trading in lane is very simple, it's very easy. It's an auto Q auto and you proc it, so if a support is walking up to trade with you, let's say like a Janna or I don't know, a Senna or something, auto Q auto, boom, you're winning that trade, right? Pretty simple concept. As long as the enemy ADC isn't also trading with you, but that's just based on entirely on your positioning and all that sort of stuff. In the laning phase, Conquer is good. I usually don't go Conquer because I don't usually build like Trinity Force. I believe this item is better with Trinity Force, because with Trinity you have more HP, you have more attack speed, so you're a little bit more of a bruiser champion that can sort of walk up, stay in the fight a little bit more, and use your attack speed from Trinity a little bit more effectively, and the stats from Trinity a little bit more effectively. But I'll talk about why I don't usually build Trinity a whole lot, and therefore that's why I usually go press the attack instead of conquer. But we'll get into that. Oh, and First Strike. I've been asked about First Strike. First Strike as a rune is not all that good on Ezreal. Obviously, people used to build First Strike a lot when it first came out. I remember when the rune first came out, actually, I was like, damn, this rune sucks for Ezreal. Like, I thought it was going to be Pog. And then I realized, like, damn, this shit kind of doesn't really work too well. The reason for that was a couple different reasons. Ezreal as a champion is an ADC, right? So there's other things to focus on in the laning outside of trading, like CSing, for example. Sometimes when you walk up to get a cannon or CS in a higher elo game, you'll take damage for it sometimes. Ezreal is obviously a longer range champion. He can, you know, farm with Qs if he has to. There's other options for him, and, you know, if you're walking up to get CS and you're taking bad trades for it, then that's not good, so you don't normally do that. But as an overall concept of First Strike on Ezreal as a champion, Ezreal can't use it as effectively all the time as other champions can. For example, I like to play support Xerath a lot, and when I play support Xerath, I go First Strike because First Strike is extremely easy to proc on support Xerath. He is completely ranged, all skill shot, and he has very far range abilities that can go through minion waves, other than his stun on his E, right? But you can poke with WQ all the time. Xerath support, very easy to proc the First Strike. And you're not likely to get your First Strike stolen from you from that sort of distance of poking people with WQ. Ezreal, on the other hand, you have to focus on walking up to make sure you're last hitting minions properly. If you do want to get good First Strike usage, First Strike is best used as a sort of combo tool with all your abilities, right? So Xerath support, for instance, he combos with a WQ, or maybe he lands an E and then a WQ, right? And an auto or something procs the full First Strike. He gets a lot of gold out of it. It's great. Ezreal, on the other hand, though, if you want to proc your First Strike, usually the full combo for that would be landing like a W, hopefully, and then Eing forward onto that W, and hopefully there's no minions in the way, because then you have to go for like an auto Q auto or something after that. This is just a basic example. This isn't going to be accurate for every game, but the point is that you're using your movement ability to go forward in the lane, and hopefully you're paying attention to where the enemy jungler is, because if you keep doing that all the time just to proc your First Strike, you're probably also going to be getting ganked a lot and dying and going too far forward. So there's a lot of instances where that can happen. You're also the ADC, so you can get poked by the enemy support or focused by the enemy support if there is a enchanter or poke support. If it's a tank support, you could get away with First Strike a little bit more often, but overall it's just not recommended, right? It's harder to use on Ezreal as a champ when there's something like PTA, where if the support walks up to you, even if you take the first hit, because that's another thing, if you take the first hit with First Strike, then it just goes on cooldown, and now you don't have a keystone rune. And that's one thing that sucks about First Strike on Ezreal, is that sometimes you just don't have a keystone rune, whereas with Press the Attack or Conquer, you always have your keystone rune active, you're always using it, and it's always available to you, and it's always doing something. Whereas First Strike can sometimes just be useless if you just get hit by random poke or something, right? So that's the reasons why I don't take First Strike on Ezreal. It's better to just go PTA or Conquer for the reasons I talked about before. So that is the runes done. Let's talk about the items real quick. Let's talk about Trinity Force. I go Essence Reaver first because a lot of the concepts, I guess I should set the baseline for this. A lot of the concepts towards building items and item timings and why you'd want to build this item first or second over this other item first or second is based on higher elo settings of play, and not like, you know, lower elo, silver, gold, whatever. If I was to go play in silver or gold, I could get away with building like an Essence Reaver into a Storm Razor or something, right? And I'd probably pop off and get like 20 kills. And it'd be great YouTube clickbait, just like all those other great YouTube league YouTubers out there that play in like gold games, and then they, you know, do some wacky build that pops off with 20 kills. Build's not actually good. If you try to do that in, you know, Master Plus, or just as an example, we'll just go with Master Plus as an example, you might get shit on. So especially if I was to, like, my main account is like Grandmaster 700 LP, so if I was to do that on there, it probably wouldn't be a good time. Maybe I could have a good game because in general I'm a pretty decent player, so maybe I could still make it work. But the general idea for the items is that there's consistency in building these certain items all the time in every game, and how consistently good they are and how they work with your champion well in every game. So we'll talk about that. But Essence Reaver as an item compared to Trinity Force is cheaper. It's 433 gold cheaper. And again, all the things I'm talking about is completely based on high elo games entirely. So this isn't like, if you can build Trinity in silver and gold, you can build Trinity in higher elo too and get away with it. You're fine. But my point is that it's about min-maxing and how every little thing in the game matters when you're trying to beat other players that are also in like the top 1,000 ranks, so top 500 or whatever, right? In the top ranks of play, if you want to eke out an edge and actually win more of your games than lose, then you have to make sure that every little thing that you're doing, every CS that you're missing is important. Rather, every CS you're getting is important. Every CS you miss is bad. Every amount of gold that you spend is important. All these little things matter, right? And so 433 gold is a lot in that aspect. If I'm playing in a silver gold game, 433 gold is nothing. All right, I probably just pop off and like 1v3 their jungle or 2v3 their jungle bot lane, and we just get a triple kill, and you know, I can build Trinity and in Manamune at 10 minutes, right? But that's not going to happen in higher elo. So that's what all these concepts are based on. 433 gold is a lot. And also the components for Trinity compared to Essence Reaver can feel kind of bad to build, because when you're building we're comparing Essence Reaver and Trinity to a 1-to-1 item as a first item in the game, because on average games in higher elo will last probably about 25 minutes. At least looking through my games. Lower elo games can go for like an extra 10 minutes, right? They can go like 35 average or something. I don't know the exact number, but they're generally longer. In higher elo games, a lot of my games actually have been ending like 15-20 minutes lately, but on average it's like 25. Excuse me, sorry. But yeah, so when games are shorter in higher elo, and with what I talked about earlier, where every little thing matters, all your gold and stats and all that you're getting from these items are very, very important, and every CS you're getting is important and all that stuff. The first 1 to 2 items, first 2 items that you build in the game are extremely important in solo queue, in higher elo solo queue. So we're not comparing Trinity Force to your 6-item Trinity Force build with Manamune and Cerildas, and whoa, we got like Stormrazor, Bloodthirster, 4th and 5th item. It's craziness. Okay, we're not comparing it to that. Like, yeah, a 6-item build, people like to do this thing where they look at like full item builds in practice tool and like look at the damage. It just fell off my desk. What just fell off my desk? Oh, it's just a wrapper. Okay. What was I talking about? I thought there was like a bug or something that just jumped off my desk. No, it's just wrapper. Yeah, we're not talking about that because that's not important. The full item 6-item Ezreal build that people theorize, or like all these ideas, these concepts of, you know, damage numbers at max items don't matter. Damage numbers even at 4 items, 3 items don't matter. Okay, we're talking about the first item of the game, first 2 items of the game, and how important those are, because in a lot of games in solo queue, and the higher elo, the higher level of play you climb up, you realize how important those are. And so Essence Reaver, in comparison to Trinity Force, can perform a lot better once you complete it at like the 10-minute mark or whatever time you complete it, right? Games vary. It can do a lot more than Trinity Force can, and it can feel better to build too at times. It's cheaper, which is important. 433 gold is a lot. That goes towards your second item. The infinite mana is nice. Obviously, we'll talk about the infinite mana and how that correlates with Manamune second after that. Again, Trinity Force is not bad. I'm not saying this is bad. You can build Trinity Force. and higher elo games. I think if you go to OPGG, people aren't building Trinity Force. When you look at stats websites, all right, we go to here, we see Trinity, Manamune. Look at that, a lot of people building it because of the Trinity buff, so that's great. That's awesome. They're going Ezreal as third, and it has a pretty high win rate. I wouldn't look at win rate too much. These aren't important, right? Like the new Dustblade, I don't know why this is 58.32%. I think this is still considering old Dustblade. I don't know. I think this is just people popping off in like silver. I don't understand, right? But the new, I would not recommend the new Dustblade third. Although I guess the stats they got were okay, but I will talk about that comparing with Navori and all that later. Yomu's, for instance, 56.49%. That one's okay. But I wouldn't really pay attention to, I don't ever look at win percentages when it comes to this. I just look at the items themselves and how they work with the champion in the game. I don't really care about this, because people will ask me about, well, this has a high win percentage, or like they'll go to a champions thing and they'll look at like, you know, they'll go to like bot lane or whatever, right? And instead of looking at tier, they'll look at like win rate, and it's like, whoa, like man, Seraphine's really good. And to be fair, Seraphine is kind of annoying in bot lane, but you know, the win rate isn't always indicative of a champion necessarily being good. It can be okay, right? I'm not saying it's like bad, but like Fiddlestick's support is like number 3 in win rate apparently, but he's like tier 5. I don't know what's up with that. I don't ever see Fiddlestick support, but there must be some Fiddlestick support players just popping the fuck off and in gold. Like, I don't know what's happening there, but stats can be skewed sometimes. I wouldn't always look at win rate. I don't ever think win rate percentages are that important unless it's so grossly out of proportion from what everything else is. Like if it's like 55+% win rate, okay, that's probably disgustingly broken and needs to be nerfed. Or if it's like below 45% win rate, like 42-43%, okay, that probably needs some help from Riot, right? But within, you know, like that 5-10 percentile range, I don't really pay attention to that too much, because there's other important factors to look at. It's not when percentage doesn't matter. But anyways, I kind of went off on a tangent there, talking about that. That was from me talking about Trinity not being bad per se. Can't build it in the games, but the point of me building Essence Reaver over Trinity and why I do that is because it is cheaper, and that extra 433 gold is extremely important. And the items and the feeling of Essence Reaver first compared to Trinity when you're poking. Again, we're comparing these items 1-to-1. We're not comparing Trinity plus Manamune to Essence Reaver plus Manamune, or we're not comparing Trinity Manamune Ceruldas to Essence Reaver Manamune Navori or whatever. We're comparing just Essence Reaver to just Trinity, and how that feels in the game at the point of completing that item, and what you can do with that item at that point of completion in the game, right? In the early to mid game stages of or probably going to complete it before turret plates fall, but the things that you can do with that item at that stage in the game. So obviously you're going to complete Essence Reaver earlier than you're going to complete Trinity Force, so you're able to do more with the item quicker, right? And we're looking at Trinity Force. Look at the item components that it has. It has a sheen just like Essence Reaver, but it also has a Hearthbound Axe, which doesn't really feel that great on Ezreal. Spending 1100 gold for this, you're getting 15% attack speed, and the attacking a unit grants move speed. Not that great compared to, let's say, Warhammer. 25 attack damage, 10 ability haste, boom. We love that on Ezreal, right? Trinity Force can feel kind of weird when you're building these components. You have these random items in your slots, like sometimes you'll go back to lane, you have like a dagger for no fucking reason. It's like, okay, like, damn, I don't know. Well, usually you won't, because you'll just get 2 longswords, or sometimes you'll just have a Ruby Crystal with 150 health that you're not using, because if you're playing Ezreal at a high level of play, you're not utilizing your health that much in laning phase, or at least you shouldn't be if you're playing properly, which should be the goal if you're playing in higher elo settings, right? Which is what this video is based around, is that you're probably not going to be taking a whole lot of damage all the time. Again, that's not, games can vary. Sometimes you get 3-man, 4-man Dove bot, it is what it is, but a Ruby Crystal isn't going to help you there anyways, right? So with Ezreal specifically as a champion and his poking in the early game, mid game, and all that, you're going to be getting a lot more value out of Essence Reaver. It's cheaper, which means you get it sooner, which means you can do more stuff earlier in the game. Admittedly, the crit cloak does suck to build, but you're not going to build that anyways, usually until last, because you're going to get your tier sheen first, then you're going to get a Warhammer, and then you're 1100 gold away from your Essence Reaver at that point, in which case you usually just save up towards the 1100 gold and don't have to buy the cloak. But sometimes you have a weird back, maybe you have an unfortunate death and you go back and you only have the 500, 600, whatever, and then you buy cloak and you're like, well, I guess I'm gonna sit on this for like a couple waves or like a couple minutes or whatever till I get my Essence Reaver. So this doesn't usually feel too bad because you're not even you're not worried about it, you're not sitting on it for too long, right? But the overall purpose of Essence Reaver is that it's cheaper and it's infinite mana, infinite poke once you have it completed. And as a one-to-one item comparison at, let's say, 10 minutes into the game, if you were to get, let's say you were ahead and you got Trinity at like 10 minutes, say you were also had a decent game and had Essence Reaver at 10 minutes, I would much rather take the Essence Reaver, although generally you would have Essence Reaver sooner than Trinity, so I guess that's a bad example because it is cheaper to build, right? But what you can do with that item is more overall in terms of poking, the damage that you have, and all that at the early stages of the game as turret plates are starting to go down, and all that. That's why I go Essence Reaver. Again, it's not that Trinity is bad. You can build Trinity, you can have great games with it, and it can feel good. And building it with Conqueror and having that extra health and attack speed with the Conqueror, and then you're like in fights and you're like kind of tanky, and it's great for being almost like a bruiser ADC with that as a first item. You can get a lot of value out of that, right? It's not that you can't, but if we're talking about consistency's sake of always doing how do I explain this? Because in higher elo games you always want to consistently make the right choices and do good things in the game, always CSing perfectly, always doing all this stuff. I feel like Essence Reaver overall will always give you that compared to Trinity. It's hard to explain a little bit more than that, but there is those are sort of like the concepts behind it, I guess. Moving on to Manamune second. People have asked me about Manamune, why go Manamune second with Essence Reaver if mana is useless, you already have infinite mana. Why not go like Navori second or something, right? Same concept as the Essence Reaver versus Trinity thing. It's not bad. Well, actually, I would consider Navori second bad compared to Trinity Force versus Essence Reaver. I would not go Navori second overall compared to Manamune, because again, it's 500 gold cheaper than Navori. And what it builds out of is a bunch of longswords, a Warhammer, and the item itself, when you get it fully stacked, the tier stacks second, is really, really good on Ezreal. If you're trying to build a Navori second, again, you have another weird crit cloak in here. You have a pickaxe, which can be kind of weird, but it's good. It just gives AD. But then you have the Warhammer, which is obviously good. The feeling of the item second, though, in the game, by the time you're completing this item and how expensive it is to complete, means you're spiking later than when you're getting your Manamune complete. And it's not quite for the time, the portion of the game that you're building this item second in compared to Manamune second, it's not going to feel as good as Manamune second in like the 20-minute mark, for instance. So you have I don't know, full Essence for your Manamune and boots completed at anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes, right? 17 minutes, I don't know. It's gonna feel weird compared to Manamune, because Manamune has been a staple item on Ezreal for so long. If you look at the stats of it and what it does when you get the mana charge on it, it transforms into mirror mana. It just buffs all of Ezreal up, all his abilities, even his just auto attacks, and everything feels really good for him when he gets that completed second. With Navori, you're not really getting that. The damage feels maybe kind of similar But the actually, I wouldn't even say it's similar. It's probably worse, but I don't really go into like the specific details of stats and all that. The non-ultimate ability cooldown stuff isn't really useful for you at that stage of the game, and the mythic passive is also, you're only getting it off of ER. You're not even getting it off of 2 items yet, and overall it's more expensive. It's kind of hard to build because of how expensive it is, and also has another cloak in it. And yeah, you're spiking earlier with the ER into Manamune combo as compared to Trinity into Manamune or ER into Navori, whatever, right? This is like, these are 2 cheap items and they're really good, and they provide all good stats for Ezreal, other than, sure, you can argue the 20% crit chance from ER is bad, but that is for the Navori that we built 3rd, and it's not that bad when you consider how good ER is overall and how cheap it is for Ezreal. Alright, talking about Navori, 3rd item option for Ezreal. The reason we build this 3rd and not 2nd is because, like I talked about earlier, the first 2 items that you build in higher elo solo queue is really important. So you want the most value that you can get out of those 2 items. You want those 2 items to work really well with your champion and not have any room for wasted stat potential or anything like that, and just having what gives you the most value, right? So when we talked about that with Trinity, how it's more gold, how there's some weird sort of components and stats that you might not want, and the same thing with building like Navori 2nd, just doesn't feel very good. It's more expensive, it's 500 gold more expensive, which is a lot to build for a 2nd item. And how, again, the components, this can be a little bit weird because there's another crit cloak in there and it's expensive and all that, compared to Manamune 2nd, which as an early item on Ezreal will always feel good. 2nd after Essence Reaver. So that's why we build Navori 3rd, is because the gold amount that it has is more in line for a 3rd item option for Ezreal with the 3400, and at that point in the game, laning phase is over and the map is sort of opened up a bit more. You're going around the map more at that point, at least in higher elo you are going mid or top side, fighting for objectives, more skirmishes happen. You're staying hopefully ahead, even or ahead. If you fall behind, that's okay, but there's more things happening in the game where you would have more opportunity and potential for an influx of gold to start building something like this, and this is where this item will start to shine more at this stage of the game. When you complete it 3rd, let's say, I don't know, it varies so much, again, game to game, but 25 minutes, something like that, 20 to 25 minutes, hopefully. Yeah, the timings in these games are important for the items that are being built during these times in the games. So that's, Navori will feel really good 3rd. It'll also have the 40% crit chance now with the Essence Reaver plus the Navori, which works with its passive. And this is the point in the game where reducing your non-ultimate ability cooldowns with your attacks and all that start to feel good with the Navori. So plus Ezreal's Q passive and all that feels nice. That's where the item will shine the most, is 3rd on Ezreal. And then after that we go Lord Dom's. Lord Dom's got changed to be the bonus damage on it. It says here, against champions with greater max health than you, is not only physical now, it's also magic, which makes it really nice for Ezreal because Ezreal's abilities have magic in them. The W, the E, the R and stuff. And even the Q, I think, has like 15% AP ratio, or I don't know if it still does anymore. I'd have to look that up, but his abilities have AP ratios in them, which make this much better on him now. Plus, because of the Navori changes, it's now a mythic with the ability haste, 5 ability haste per legendary item. This also makes it work better. 3rd, you have these 2 items which give another 10 on top of the 20 that this has, on top of the reducing non-ultimate ability cooldowns of the attacks. And then the now Lord Dominic's change with the 60% crit also adds on to the Navori passive as well. And you're still getting the 30% armor penetration like you would with Cerilda's, which is nice, and then the attack damage is nice, and everything here just feels good for Ezreal compared to Cerilda's, which we'll look at now, which is 200 gold more expensive, and the slow is not all that useful. I mean, it was nice, but compared to what Lord Dominik's does now in this 3-item build for Ezreal to what Serylda's would do, and you can see why Lord Dominik's would work just so much better. The crit chance works better, the extra physical and magic bonus damage now, and all that just feels really, really nice for Ezreal, so that's why we're building that fourth. And especially there's no, as you see, we're not building any health in this build, so we're pretty likely to be less HP than other targets in the game, especially with Ezreal's like base HP and all that, so you are going to be getting this bonus damage at this stage of the game where you have your 4 items plus boots. That's like 5 items, you're only missing the 1 item at the end, GA, right? So at this stage of the game where you're completing this Lord Dominik's, you're definitely going to be up against some people that have some more HP than you, right? So you'll be getting value out of this item, which is why we take this over Serylda's. And then the last item is situational, but I just put Guardian Angel here as that sort of an all-rounder. You would want to get a stopwatch for later in the game for those important fights around those important objectives, Barons, Dragons, Elder Drakes, whatever. And then completing this item into a full item can be useful to stay alive. The Guardian Angel icon and the effect around your character can be a deterrent for people killing you sometimes because they know you're just going to revive. There's some of those sort of aspects to it as well, but I wouldn't buy this item if you're behind in the game, because if you're behind and you know that you have to carry the fight and you have somehow made it to 6 items even though your team's like behind overall, let's say you're ahead or even or ahead, this is where I would recommend you can build GA if you know that you have to be the carry in the fight, or at least have the stopwatch. But if you know that you really have to carry the fight and you don't have an option for a defensive item because you are the damage dealer and you have to like 1v9, right, in order to win the game, then this is where you would want a Bloodthirster. The new Bloodthirster is nice because this gives it also has a 20% crit strike chance, which works with Navori as well, but now has this passive where when you're above 50% health, you gain additional attack damage. The attack damage is 10 to 40 scaling with level, I believe. So when you're building this item last, you're going to be 18 most likely, or at least close to it. So you'll be getting the 35 to 40 attack damage, which is 90 to 95 AD on this item, which is really nice. The lifesteal and the extra damage from the crit strike chance that works with Navori is good. Overall, this new Bloodthirst does feel good as the last item if you want to try to carry on Ezreal. There are other options that we would go previously as last damage items. You could go like Ravenous. Although I think the new Bloodthirst would be better. Ravenous is more for like wave clear, but in terms of like just fighting potential, Bloodthirster is pretty good. There are some interesting things I was thinking about before. If you really needed to like hard carry a game and you just needed like damage, they did switch some items to be like these items, Kraken Slayer. They switched this to be just legendary and not mythic anymore. You could technically build this. The attack speed is kind of weird. But the passive Kraken does work with Ezreal Qs and all that. You are getting crit strike chance and attack damage. Maybe it has potential. I think this still does true damage, so maybe against tanky targets. It's just an idea, but I don't know if I'd recommend that. Bloodthirster definitely sounds pretty good as a last item if you need to carry, but the last item is pretty situational depending on the game state, like if you need the GA or if you need the BT or if you need anything else. I would say healing reduction, but getting healing reduction this late in the game is kind of weird, unless it's like absolutely needed. Then yeah, you could get that, or even get the what is it called, the Executioners earlier, just to hang on to it for healing reduction while you're building your like Lord Doms, let's say. But you don't want to build any situational items before you get these, at least these first 3 items complete, because it's very important to hit these spikes as soon as possible in the game, and then continue to hopefully hard carry and deal a lot of damage from then on. So that's sort of the meta Ezreal build here. I'll leave this down here for the situational item purchase. There's also some instances where you could go Zhonya's against some assassins that are jumping on you. This is kind of rare that I would do this, but there's been very few instances where a Zhonya's would be more useful than a GA to have this Zhonya's active every fight in the later stages of the game. against like the Zed that's been jumping on me the whole game or something, right? So that can be useful. The armor and the ability power and ability haste are all nice for Ezreal, so that's totally fine. There's a couple different options, but for the most part, this is probably the two that I would stick to the most in like a majority of games, and then there's very small random instances where maybe you need that healing reduction item last, or the Zanyas in some very specific scenarios or something like that. But we're talking about specifically high elo games here and not building anything weird or wacky just for the fun of it. This is consistently what will do the best for you in those games. But like I talked about earlier, this isn't like silver or gold games, so you can build whatever in those pretty much and stomp if you're a good player. But eking out every small percentage advantage that you can get against good players in higher elo is important, so this is the sort of build that will do that for you. This will give you the overall good consistency that you want out of Ezreal in those in your ranked games. So that's what I would recommend going. What else did I want to talk about? Talk about some situational items. I mean, there's like Maw too, which I don't like usually ever build this, because again, the way Ezreal works as a champion is you generally shouldn't be needing too much defensive, because if you're playing the champion properly, or let's say perfectly, for example, which nobody really does. I mean, some people, you have perfect games sometimes, or just really good games, but overall, you're not really going to need defensive items too much as long as you're playing the champion properly. Maw can be good if the only time I ever build this is against multiple AP champions on the enemy team. Like, let's say it's like 4 AP, right? Like, okay, I'll probably get a Maw, but I would at least want to get my first core items first. These 3 items first, and then building a Maw, because building this any earlier will not feel good on delaying any of your other items first and then getting a Maw later. Even building it before Lord Doms can be weird if the enemy team also has like some tanky champs, right? So maybe you could get just the Hex Drinker if you really needed it, but I wouldn't build this until even after Lord Doms probably, because it's just so important to get your core items and be able to use those. Again, it'd be a very rare situation where I would build this like earlier, but for the most part, if you're playing Ezreal properly, you don't really need defensive too much, except for like last item where fights are really important that you win them or carry them, stay alive, whatever, for the Elder Baron fights or game-winning fights, right? So that is pretty much the meta build on Ezreal. I think I talked about this earlier. I kind of hit stop recording and then came back to this, but people ask me about like random weird situational item builds and stuff all the time, or just random builds that they come up with. But again, these builds are all based on trying to eke out that like 5% extra damage or 5% extra advantage that you can get against an enemy at any stage of the game. So getting this Essence Reaver 433 gold sooner, cheaper in the game, and being able to use that in like the next dragon fight or something bot side for the second Drake can be important than having to wait and complete your Trinity Force because it costs more. Or same with people that want to try like Navori second instead of Manamune. This costs another 500 gold, and it can be weird to build another crit cloak randomly sometimes, and you're not going to get that at important timings in the game where you could use those extra stats or the extra item advantage that you could have from just having the Manamune second, right? So that's why we go Essence Reaver into Manamune into Navori third, compared to like, you know, Trinity Force first or Navori second with the Essence Reaver build, stuff like that. So, but again, not that those are bad, it's just that these are all examples of high elo games and doing as much as you can as soon as you can, where every little thing matters in those games, and every advantage that you can take in those games matters. So the advantage of getting your items earlier, getting them first, getting all that stuff is important. So yeah, you can go into silver games, you can stop with Navori second, but I wouldn't recommend ever building it until third, just as examples. So those are sort of my thoughts on the items, the meta build, and stuff like that. Hopefully this helps to explain or help people think a little bit for themselves as to why the weird builds that they come up with may not work, right? So like I said earlier, we don't compare 6 item builds to 6 item builds because it's useless in the context of an actual league game in Master Plus, right? Because you're not usually getting to 6 items, games don't last that long, etc, etc. So hopefully that helps people understand why going something like Essence Reaver into Manamune is really important in the games that I play, and not going, you know, some weird like Navori second or some shit. Although, like I said, I will do that for for YouTube's sake, doing some weird builds. Maybe I play that on like a lower elo account, and my, you know, I have like on tier stack, for instance, this account is like Masters, but my main account's GM, so I probably wouldn't do that in those games. But yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit. It's kind of hard to talk about everything because there's a lot to talk about, but hopefully there's some useful information for you there about builds in this patch and builds for future patches, and how you can sort of determine what is good and what is not good on whatever champion that you're playing. But specifically for Ezreal, that is what is meta. Let me go to my match history here so I can look at this game real quick. This is a game I had last stream that was good, macro wise, that I thought might be interesting to talk about some of the concepts in this game based around the minimap macro play. This game I went 5-0-4 at 159 CS at 15.5 minutes, so it was like 10.3 CS a minute. It was a good game, but it wasn't anything too crazy, right? It was not like I had dropped 20 kills or something. It was in a Masters elo game average, and so figured it would be good to go over this and talk about it. Let me switch the scene real quick. Oh, it already did. Never mind. We're good. And I believe a wacky level 1 play happens here, so we can watch that unfold. Nice. Turn my sound down real quick, just a little bit. And hopefully some information that I give in this, looking through this, will be helpful in terms of laning phase and all that. Take a drink of water here. It's funny, I get comments sometimes. I mean, it's very rarely on YouTube, but sometimes I get flamed a bit for missing abilities, or like people questioning how I climb, or how I'm high elo, or like, how is this guy good? How is this guy a good Ezreal player? Yada yada yada, whatever. I don't think specifically my micro is anything crazy, you know, like I'm not Faker or anything, or whatever other pro player. But I think my macro concepts and just how I play the game and laning phase in general is good overall and very consistent, and there's not much room for the enemy to take advantage of me in that sort of and those sort of parts of the game. So that's what I'll try to focus on for talking about in this video, not necessarily me hitting every Q. That obviously would be nice, but that is also not possible against higher elo players that are good at dodging. That's another thing, is like, yeah, I've looked at some of those. I don't think anyone's made a montage of me in a while, but I've looked at some of those fucking Ace Ezreal montages, and you see those comments, right? I mean, you've seen it on like my montage video I made on this channel, the hate one, but it's like, dude, you take any of those people that are making those comments and you put them in this sort of game, right, in this elo of a game, and dude, they'd be fucking missing Qs left and right. All right, because there's a lot of Qs or a lot of abilities that I throw that are prediction Qs that don't always work out, but a lot of them do, where the enemy like walks back into it, right? And so you sort of have to think about how they're gonna move compared to what you're gonna throw, because again, people you're playing against have played this game hundreds, thousands of hours as well, right? And they're also really good at the game, so they know what Ezreal does as a champion and when Ezreal's probably gonna throw his Q. So, and then the people in this elo being good at dodging, right? It can be hard to land every ability. So to be good at a full skill shot champion in higher elo can not always be easy, but I just thought that was funny that I would bring that up, because although I don't think my micro was great, I think it's still obviously better than most anyone else that plays Ezreal. So that's not like an ego thing or anything. I'm not saying I'm like the best Ezreal, but in the world or anything, because you know, you got that crazy like what was it, like the Chinese 2K LP Ezreal player or whatever, or just pro players in general, right? Can be really good Korean players or whatever. There's a lot of good players out there at ADC in general. I guess my point is that, you know, people be flaming, talking shit, but man, if only I could take them and put them in these games, man, I would love to watch them play on my GM 700 LP account and see how that game goes for them when they play Ezreal, and watch them hit all their abilities. I would love to see it. Anyways, yeah, this is a weird level 1 fight that happened here. So we're not going to talk about this too much because this is just chaos, but try to focus one target, obviously, and then when we go in for an invade here, we let Nautilus and Poppy go first. I'm obviously not going to be going first, because if I face check a bush, then I can just get one shot, right? But that's a pretty basic concept. I don't think I need to talk about that. We all focus one target at a time. I heal Poppy. Unfortunately, Wukong lives. Janna with the weird flash heal. And just overall, we win the fight, so it was good. But that's just solo queue chaos. There's not much macro to talk about there, so we're not gonna focus on that. But I do believe the macro concepts and stuff that I can talk about, laning phase, wave management, farming, and all that can be useful info, and that's really where I shine, not hitting all of my abilities against the other, you know, master, GM, whatever challenger player that I'm up against. Alright. Sorry, just taking a drink of water because I've been talking a lot. I tried to make this video before, but I didn't feel like it turned out too well, so I'm trying to do it again. Because I felt like it was just a jumbled mess of ideas, and maybe this one will be too, but hopefully it's a little bit better than the previous recording I did. When I was talking about item builds, remember what I talked about was important, that every CS that you get is important, because if you're missing CS, you're not getting gold, and if you're not getting gold, you're not getting your items sooner. And that might sound like a really simple concept, but people will still miss a lot of CS and not focus on CS enough, take weird trades instead of going for minions. General rule of thumb, I'd say an overall rule of thumb, you don't want to ever miss CS for trades. Even if your support is making weird plays, you do not miss a cannon for your weird support engage, unless you know that the enemy jungle is in bot side, and you know that if it's like an engage on like a 200 HP Janna, then yeah, we're gonna go in and get that free kill, of course. Maybe we miss a cannon for it, that kind of sucks. Hopefully you can get both at the same time, but you always want to be able to take trades that are beneficial and that you're not ever missing farm for it. Always, CS is always king when it comes to laning phase. CS is always important. Every single minion is important to get, especially in higher elo. But we talked about this earlier when we were talking about builds and stuff, so I don't need to talk about that too much. We are, you don't always have to push for level 2 with Ezreal. It's just the way that this played out. Their bot lane got back pretty late, and we're just keeping our passive stacked with our Qs. It's not always important early on, because I'm also testing the waters here of like Wukong, whether he wants to like level 2 gank us with red, level 3 gank us, whatever, right? Usually this doesn't happen, but it's something that you can keep in mind. So I'm pushing, but I'm not like super pushing, right? And Nautilus uses Q there, but we're on the second wave, so these two melee creeps are going to give us level 2, and Nautilus is down a hook. So we know that even when we hit level 2, we're not going to have hookup immediately. Usually what would happen in this lane is that we get level 2 here, and then Nautilus would already be like walked up like here, ready to throw the hook as we hit 2. But he doesn't have hookup right now. As you can see, it's on cooldown, but he scares them off anyways, so We just keep farming here, making sure not to miss any CS. We are 12 out of 12, so that's good. And then now that this wave is getting shoved in, Ashe will have a harder time farming under turret, especially this early on in the game without many items or levels or anything like that, base stats to help with farming. So that is one good thing about shoving, but of course when you're shoving you always have to be careful of the enemy jungler. But it's early enough in the game to where we don't really have to worry about that. However, we do have to be careful of Wukong coming down. But again, this is 2 minutes and 20 seconds. It's not likely that Wukong comes down, and if he does, my Nocturne would just invade his top side and take his camps, which would suck for him. So that's usually why junglers don't do that, unless you're playing against like some Shaco that's cheesing level 2 or something. But because they can clear really fast early with their boxes. But again, those are random examples because there's so many champions in the game, but we're just going to talk about this one specifically. This game specifically. Nocturne lands the hook, and we have 5 caster creeps on our side, so we can do pretty much whatever we want here. Even if Wukong is down here, this hook is so good, and we have so many caster creeps that are about to focus Janna because they haven't hit the turret yet. Because with the new changes, of course, once the minions start hitting the turret, they only hit the turret. But here they're hitting Janna, so as soon as the hook lands, we throw the Q, we go for an auto and then an E, because that min-maxes our damage. Then we can go for another auto, proc the PTA, go for another auto, and she's really low. Now you do not flash here for this kill. This is not worth it. I know Janna doesn't have flash heal. We do not flash for this kill. Okay, and here's why. Because it's really far under turret, but the 300 gold is worthless. Okay, we don't care about the 300 gold and getting a kill on Janna because of what we lose afterwards for it, right? First of all, we got knocked up by the tornado here, which is unlucky, but I was min-maxing my damage with an auto and then an E. So maybe if I didn't get this airborne right here, maybe my auto attack timer comes up a little bit sooner, and then I can go for a safer flash auto under turret, but it's a little bit delayed. So I just throw my auto here, which means there's like a cooldown, right, for how often you can auto attack. So if I'm doing this, then my auto comes back up about here, but obviously I'm not going to go in for it. I would have to flash, like, I'd have to stay up and flash like right here to get an auto on her when she's like running back, right? I can't just like walk up. I'd have to walk back because I don't want to take turret aggro after that last auto I gave her. Walk back a bit and then flash forward for an auto, and then I start taking turret shots at level 2. And I'm definitely bound to at least take 2 because I flash forward and I don't have heal up. And Ashe also has slows on her passive, and there's also this little slow thing here from Janna as well if I tried to run back here. But it's just way too deep under turret, and even if I did live that, I am now like a sliver of HP, right? I have way less HP, and all the lane pressure that I have would be gone. Sure, I get 300 gold, but what does that net me at this point in the game? Not really much, to be honest. I can get like a tier, okay? So it's not really worth to take all that damage, and then I can't keep shoving waves out. But with this, with what we did here, we didn't overextend, we didn't waste our flash. Generally, you want to save your flash for as long as possible, and hopefully not have to use it in the game. But sometimes you just do use it because there are free kills that you know you can use it aggressively for, but you don't want to give up your shutdowns. Usually later on in the game you don't want to die at all, so saving your flash for defensive purposes is usually good, but that's not always the case. Sometimes we use it aggressively. It's just about finding when those right times are, which just comes with practice, right? But anyways, because we got Janna super low, and both me and Nollis are full HP basically, and still doing well in the lane, don't really have to worry about a Wukong gank now too much, because if he does come, like, what is he gonna do if he was to like level 3 gank us after chickens here, or if he did happen to be down here, if he went like red chickens into Krugs, right? What is he gonna do here? Okay, that Q was whack, but he can't really do much. We're both full HP, we're both tanky. I can E away, yeah, so we just have lane pressure now. So now we can just, it's easy to farm. I don't have to worry about missing CS. I'm not gonna get poked by a Janna because she's low. We got her low, we didn't overextend, we still have our flash, we're good, we're chilling, right? We have all the pressure in the world to just do whatever we want with this lane now, off of that trade. And we didn't overextend just for a simple kill, so we can get much more off of it than just the 300 gold that we got. Again, this is kind of a specific scenario for this game, just because I wasn't able to get that flash kill on the turret. If I was able to do it, it was just sort of weird with the timing of my auto attack and how deep she was on her turret that I didn't go for it. But if there was another situation, or if there was a world in which I could get that, I probably would have flashed for it. But just because it ended up playing out this way, we don't overextend, and that's fine. We have all the tools available to us now to just shove the lane in, farm well, and that makes it harder for Ashe to farm on the turret too. So that's good for us, but we still have to be careful with Wukong here. I just walk up here like this because I can. They're busy farming under turret. Janna is scared of us now in the Nautilus. Even if Wukong's here, I'm just checking to make sure that he's not doing some weird early gank, or like their bot lane fake leash and he started top and is coming bot. We don't have vision of that, right? But my jungler is bot side now. Just get this ward here, it'll be good. And even if Wukong was there, I could just E over the wall, right? And then he just can't do anything. So that's a nice thing about Ezreal, is being able to E over walls like that. But again, I don't walk up for hitting turret here or trading because I'm by myself. Nautilus is back here chilling, and the plate's not low enough. We don't have enough minions here anyways to really do much. So we we sit back and we keep the pressure on in the lane. Janna just fucks up and just walks forward here, so that's just a free kill. But even if Janna doesn't walk forward there, we're still doing really well, and we can just keep shoving waves in and making it hard for Ashe to farm. So as you can see at 347, we have 30 CS. Ashe has 20. He has this wave that's coming in. But because we killed Janna, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. We could push for a plate here, but we didn't have vision on Wukong immediately as Nautilus was going for the back, so but now we do. We know it's safe. We could have probably gotten a plate here, but this is fine to reset. Let's see. We have our tier sheen, so the back was not bad. Even though we didn't go for any turret plates, that's fine. We're able to get tier sheen at 4 minutes, which is huge. So off of the kill plus the CSing well. I think when I went for this back here, I had like just barely enough, like just barely 1100. And that's thanks to like last hitting perfectly. I think I missed one. I think I missed one CS, but last hitting well here obviously helped us a lot with getting the items we need, which is again why in the higher elo you climb, the more important it is that you get every CS and you don't miss anything, especially cannon minions. Very important. But yeah, Nautilus is roaming here. Ashe didn't reset yet, so obviously she wants to reset while we farm this, but we know they reset, so we don't have to worry about their bot lane being in lane. But Nautilus did excuse me, did go for a gank and reset, and we know he's not down here yet, so I'm being a little bit careful. Even though I assume they reset, I still wasn't 100% sure, because you know sometimes they could just be cheesy and sit in this bush, so it wouldn't be ideal for Ashe at that point because she needed to get a reset. So I assume they're not there, but being cautious just in case. And there's no reason for me to hard shove this too fast anyways, since my Nautilus isn't quite here yet. He's still on his way, so we're chilling. But we get that pushed out just a little bit so I can go drop a ward here, and then now Nautilus is going to be back in lane, and we just keep farming and getting this shoved in a little bit. Our jungler's bot side, I forgot to put this on, but we can assume that Wukong is, you know, somewhere where we can't see him. If you don't see him on the map, then I usually assume they're bot side. That's also a good reason to always pay attention to the minimap, because if you're always assuming they're bot side, then you're also always, well, then you always have to play safe, right? But if you're hounding your minimap like a hawk, which is important to do, is to always be looking at your minimap. I look at my minimap so much. Like, it's what I'm watching like 50% of the game. Well, at least for laning phase. I am looking at my minimap constantly to look at where Wukong is. with the enemy jungler, right? Because as soon as we see Wukong here, or we see Wukong like on a ward up here, that instantly changes what we can do in the lane and how we can play it out, right? Because before, or like in this situation, right, let's say the wave state's like right here, both of them are full HP, both of us are full HP, even though I have sums and I can flash, I can E away and stuff like that. If I don't see Wukong anywhere, and I have a strong sense that he can be here, we have to be careful if the wave gets stuck in like a weird spot, like right here, right? If there's like our minion wave here, enemy minion wave here, none of them are low because we haven't taken any good trades against them yet, since we both just came back in the lane and the wave states right here. If I'm shoving this wave out in a turret, I have to be careful of watching these two and how they're playing, right? Because if they start playing aggro for some weird reason, even though we have like minion advantage or whatever, we can assume that we're probably going to be getting ganked, in which case we'll have to be careful to start running back. So I'm not going to be like taking hard trades here if that's the case, and I'm more so looking to shove out the minion wave as fast as possible to get it pushed in the turret so it resets back into the middle of the wave, so that way it's safer for me to continue laning without getting ganked by the jungler. But that's all those things are important as to why you look at the minimap, because as soon as we see Wukong here, we're pretty much safe to do what we want for the most part. You see him going into this bush, now he's here. He's the control ward. So I can play a little bit of aggro here. I don't know, I'm not going to get ganked. I can walk up, throw a W auto. I unfortunately get hit by the NATO there, but I don't take a turret shot. So I can't be too crazy here because I have a Nautilus who's a tank champion that goes for hooks. And so, you know, it's not like he can hit the turret really in this situation against these two champs. If he goes and hits it, then he's gonna take a lot of damage. He can hit it and like Q back, right, if he wants, but we know Wukong is boss side after clearing the control ward, so we have to be a little bit cautious of that. But now the wave is in the middle and we're fine here. We have a ward. Even if Wukong was to come like this, we'd be fine. Don't have to worry about it too much. But again, excuse me, sorry for coughing, but I've been talking a lot today trying to make this video, so this is the second time I'm doing it, so I'm hoping it goes well this time. Drinking a lot of water and don't want to lose my voice. But because we know Wukong was bot side, we saw him there-ish recently. Their bot lane's probably warding. In this situation, right, if your Nautilus goes for a hook, if he was to hook Ashe or Janna right here, we don't have kill pressure because they're both full HP, and I don't have enough damage at this point in the game, and neither does Nautilus, right? So if he goes for a hook, you do not E forward on it, because we just talked about the wave state. Wukong can be bot side because we've been paying attention to our minimap, and nobody is here to help us, right? Vladimir's mid laning, my jungler's top side, okay? And it's not 10 minutes yet, so we're not going to get any teleports down here thanks to the new teleport changes. It's going 10 minutes now instead of 14, but yeah, so if Nautilus goes for like a crazy hook here and wants to fight, we're not overcommitting to that, because that is an easy gank for Wukong to just come out of this bush and kill us if he was here. Don't know if he is or not, but there's been a lot of cases where the jungler has been down here, so you have to take that into account, that we don't have kill pressure. But thankfully Nautilus is a smart boy and he knows not to go for any crazy hooks. And if he does land the hook, decides to go for it in this map state that we're in, we walk up, we can throw WQs, we can throw some autos, but we're not eating forward, right? We're not over committing. Even if we're playing another ADC that doesn't have a blink away like Ezreal does, we can still commit a little bit, but your mindset is that you're instantly ready to run away because you know that this state is like bad, right? For your side of the map. We're not ready to overcommit to anything here, unless you know you're ahead and you can like 2v3, but not when these two are both full HP and then a full HP Wukong is gonna come out of the jungle, right? So that's why we're chilling and we're just getting wave shoved in, making it harder for Ashe to farm, and we'll just keep trying to get wave shoved in and get turret plates. So just keep focused on farming. That's what we're doing. And I'm gonna take a drink of water. Oh, right there, for instance, right? So at this point, there's no way Wukong's been sitting here for like 40 seconds in this bush, right? So if Nautilus goes for that hook, it might be a little bit safer to go for more trades, but I'm still not overextending myself and eating forward, because then I'm gonna have to flash out if Wukong shows up. We haven't seen Wukong. We're looking at our mini map, but he hasn't shown up anywhere. We don't have wards anywhere, and our jungler's not bot side, so we're not overcommitting for anything here. But I am walking up and throwing Qs, maybe throwing a little bit of poke, seeing if I can weave my way in there to get some turret damage, because the plate is kind of low. Nautilus is walking up with me here, so we do have to be careful. As you can see, Nocturne is pinging retreat, he knows. And there Wukong shows top side. So we're fine. Wukong is top. And like I said before, that instantly changes the way that we can play this out now. If we didn't know where Wukong was, then this wave we would simply shove it in. We would maybe get a ward here if we have wards to throw down. And we could try to get this third plate because it's kind of low, but we could get ganked. But at this point, we can shove this in and we can probably get this plate, or Nautilus can go for a hook. As you can see, he's posturing for it because he knows that Wukong will stop and that we are free to do anything we want down here to their bot lane. And that is exactly what we do here. Nautilus goes for the hook onto the Janna here, I believe. Yep, and then I throw the WR. And then bada bing, bada boom. We can E in on Ashe because we know we're not getting ganked. But even if we were getting ganked, we're still in a good position here for me to E in, because it would be a 2v2. And we can take a heavy trade on the Ashe here. I throw the Q, proc the PTA. Unfortunately, I take a turret shot, which is not nice, but we know Wukong's not here, so we can take that trade. We can get the wave shoved in, we can get the turret plate. Ashe misses CS. Going for this is a little weird here, but it's fine because, again, Wukong is not on this side of the map. I was a little bit hesitant because I don't think at the time I was paying attention to Wukong being top. But yeah, Nautilus saves me the kill. My E comes back up, we get the kill here, and everything's fine and dandy. And even after that kill, we know that we're fine here. I could have shoved that wave out probably, but this is fine as well because this wave will now stack up with the previous wave and this will slow push into me. But I believe I stayed here because I was farming well. I have 74 CS, I have 302. I was like 100 gold off of my Essence Reaver, which is very early to get this. So I stayed for, yeah, I stayed for like a few more minions. And then I go for the reset. And that's still fine. It might not slow push into me as well, but it's good because I'm getting my Essence Reaver timing at 8 minutes, so it is still really good. As you can see, we had our ER. We are 78 CS at 8.5, and we are already pulling ahead of Ashe by, she's back in lane, so by about 15 now. 15 is a lot. 15 to 20 CS, I believe, is about a kill worth of gold, plus we're 302, so we're already pulling very far ahead. Like I said, every bit of CS matters in higher elo games. So let's rewind here and see what's happening. Obviously, my delay, my back timer is a little bit delayed. I should be back out on the map at this point, and with my team doing Drake to help with that. But I had to stay for a couple more minions to get my Essence Reaver timing, which is totally fine. It was still the right play to make, even if something bad happened to Dragon here. It's still the right play to make to stay for that extra couple minions, get my Essence Reaver, and keep getting myself ahead in the game. Because at the end of the day, although it is a selfish idea, and you do want to help your team as much as possible, there are some things in the game that you should do to continue to get yourself ahead, because the only constant factor in all of your league games is yourself and not your teammates. And so sometimes they'll do dumb stuff, sometimes you'll do dumb stuff, but you should always look to get yourself ahead and then carry yourself, because you're the one that's playing all your games. So even though the team play here is kind of weird, obviously it'd be better. I can't really communicate to my Nocturne and Nautilus too well that I had to stay a little bit longer to get my Essence Reaver, and I wouldn't be back out on the map in time for help them at this exact moment for Dragon. But it still plays out well because they take it slow because they know that I'm not there, because they're paying attention to the minimap too, which is nice. But as you can see, this is kind of becoming a sussy situation with their bot lane rotating here and the jungle coming as well. But thankfully we play this fight pretty well. That's just an example of like this Dragon Call isn't a good play because of my timing, but it's not the wrong play for me to do that, right? Nocturne was smart. He goes on the Janna. I heal him. We go forward. Flashes forward. We just land all our abilities and get the kill. Unfortunately, Wukong flashes, but we can get the kill here. Missed my Q, so Nautilus ult got the kill, but that's fine. It was still good. Trade. We got, we didn't get Drake, but we got 3 kills for just Nocturne dying. And so because all 3 of them are dead, and mid lane and top laners are still stuck there, we can shove this out. We have enough time to shove out another wave. But because my Nautilus is backing and the wave is taking a little bit long to get here, I ult this, so that way I can just shove it ASAP, because my support's not here, and, excuse me, the bot lane will be coming back soonish. So I want to get that shoved out ASAP, so I can immediately run away, get my back off. This wave gets shoved in, which is good. And yeah, that's good timing for getting that done. You have to be... it takes a while to learn this stuff, to really understand how quickly people can get back to lane, so paying attention to the respawn timer is very important too, and then sort of understanding when they can be back, because a situation like that can happen where maybe, let's say the Wukong died earlier, like much earlier in the fight, and then all of a sudden shoving out this last wave here with my ult is dangerous, because Wukong comes back onto the map, and then the dude just like decides to go for his red that's up, right? When he comes back onto the map, and then he says, oh, this Ezreal's like shoving this wave out by himself because Nautilus reset, and I'm just gonna go bot and just gank him instead. So it's important to know that, I mean, he died last, so he's respawning last, and it's gonna take him longer to get out on the map. He didn't like die early on, but so the timer for him getting back onto the map and the potential to gank me is not a problem, but it could have been if he died like way earlier or something, and then shoving out that wave is now kind of dangerous, right? So there's little things like that that are important to pay attention to, but all that sort of stuff just kind of comes with the, like, just lots of practice of playing thousands of league games and playing against every champion a lot of times, and just knowing those sorts of small things. But I guess that's more sort of like a macro thing. It's not really champion specific, the respawn time thing. But another this is another macro instance to talk about, is my team wants to go for Drake here, but my back timing again with shoving out that wave is really good for me to get back with this wave coming into me, right? And yes, I know my team wants help here with Dragon, but kind of have to play for yourself in solo queue sometimes. This is a lot of CS to miss, including a cannon, a lot of XP, a lot of gold, right? So I'm not just gonna like go through here and go to Drake unless the fight has already started. If there's already a fight happening right now and my team needs my help, then I go there. If not, I walk bot, I catch this wave, and then I go through here like slowly and carefully, right? Obviously their bot lane has all the pressure in the wave now, so they can't walk up like this, and their jungler can walk in and their mids can walk in. If that happens, then I will come to the fight, but I am getting my CS, and that's important because there's nothing happening, right? If there was something happening, then I would just walk this way, E over the wall if it's a potential, and join the fight. But they got that on their own, and just play around with the information given to me. Checking the bush, see if anyone's there. Looks like their bot isn't committing and doing for anything here, so I am just gonna shove out this wave. My team does that and continue getting ahead. Wukong decided to try to go for like a smite steal play over there, which in this case something's happening on the map, and as you can see I'm like 30 CS ahead now. Now something's happening, and now Ashe is put in the situation of choosing between this wave and helping, but she can't help this, so she's gonna go for the wave. And that's pretty much a free kill on Wukong or the Nautilus. But it doesn't matter, we're ahead, we don't really need any extra kills, so that's fine. Yeah, wave states are important for stuff when it comes to like around Dragon or even Herald for top side, right? Is that you have to be cognizant of the fact that I was getting a wave pushed into my turret here, and I was going to lose that if I was going to go for Drake. But like I said, nothing was happening at Drake, so I go for the wave. But if there was a fight, I would go help the fight instead. If I knew I could make a difference in the fight. If I was walking down the lane here and I was like right here, and the fight, my team was already fighting for some reason without me, that's not my fault because I was taking good back timings based on the waves that I shoved into them and then were getting shoved back into me. That's not my fault if my team decides to go for a weird play here, and I'm like not there yet, and let's say I get to like this spot in the lane and I want to go join the fight, but they're already like almost all dead. Well, I'm not going to go help try to join a fight that I can't make a difference in if I know I can't, so I just go and I get the wave, right? That's just trying to account for multiple situations to explain that sort of stuff, but we'll just keep focusing on the game here, on what happens in this current game. So obviously Wukong died, he's only just respawning now, so we don't have to worry about him being on the map, and we can freely push up and try to get turret plates here. You'll notice I do this thing a lot if you watch my stream, watch my videos, that when I'm underneath the turret and we're pressuring, I have 5 stacks of passive here, right? Sometimes I like to save my W until it's about to run out, the rising spell force, so that way I can keep the 5 stacks. But I'll also throw random Qs like this to try to hit Ashe. But I'm ready at max range to like run away. And I throw Qs like this to not take turret shots. This one's too close, I'd probably take a turret shot here, but just to keep my passive stacked up and poke a little bit so I can keep hitting the turret with max passive stacks. We get a plate there though. Nautilus walks back, gives me the solo plate, so that's nice. And then again, Wukong is only just recently respawned again on the map, so we don't really have to worry about him. To keep pressure on the enemy bot lane, this is something that I also like to do, that's good. We get the plate. You back off. And then now that this wave is dead, they're not focused on last hitting anything or staying in here, and this wave's coming in a straight line through the lane. So I'll walk into a bush. They don't know if I'm walking to reset or if I'm just walking to chill or something, but this is something that I do a lot and probably other Ezreals do sometimes too, is that you'll ult through the wave, and then a lot of time they'll just stand in like the middle, or they'll stand somewhere that's sort of near your their minions, and you'll get poke damage as well off of it. So like right there, I instantly get like another 250 damage or 200 damage off on Ashe, and that's more poke damage, and that's more pressure that I'm putting on their bot lane, which does add up over time, and it is important in these higher elo games. It's like now she's missing even more health, and she's trying to use potions and get through, but all that little damage can add up. All the little Q pokes that you land, all the ults that I throw through waves like that. Now she's even lower. Now I was able to push this wave quicker as well. Now this entire full HP wave is going in. We see Wukong on this ward. We know we're not going to get ganked, and now we can just keep pulverizing this turret, and we don't have to worry about getting traded on too hard here. And they're scared to walk up because of Nautilus. He's doing some good work there. As you can see, I landed a Q. This was smart from them, obviously. This is what I would do too if I was their bot lane. You want to focus as much as you can on minions here. If you're Ashe, you don't want to miss CS, right? I throw a Q there to keep my passive stacks and a little bit of poke damage, but not take too much turret damage. I did take a shot though. But this wave is like low now, so I know that I'm gonna get ulted here, but I don't care because I can just E and flash away if I absolutely have to. It's worth getting a turret plate for it, right? So I got the turret plate. My minions are still alive, they're not like dead. So I can E to the side away from the tornado, so my E goes onto the Ashe, get a little bit of damage there. I didn't go too far forward here because I didn't want to overcommit, and also Janus still has ult, but you get some poke damage. Sorry for coughing so much. I guess my throat feels a little weird because I've been talking so much, but yeah, we don't overcommit too much because again, we did see Wukong bot side on this, and so he can be bot side. My Nocturne's top side, as you can see, getting rift, so we don't want to overcommit for anything and give away our bounty that we have, which is 900 gold, so that's quite a bit. So we take a decent trade there, but we don't go too hard. So that's fine. We just give up a little bit of pressure. It's not a big deal. Wave comes in, we catch this. And Wukong runs away into his jungle. Are you not intrigued? They don't really have pressure in their lane. They're probably resetting, so that's fine. We can shove this in. And at this point, just reset here, because even though they're bot reset, Wukong could still be bot. He might have reset too, or he's running top, whatever, running mid. But we just took this turret plate, right, at this amount of HP, and then we got Ashe ulted, and that whole ordeal happened. So in order for me to get another turret plate, I have to go through another like 1000 HP, and I don't have a cannon wave with me. I'm by myself because Nas wants to reset, which is good. I should reset here too, but I was kind of being indecisive, and I decided to hit the turret a little bit. He waited for me, which was nice, but yeah, there's no way I'm gonna get that, especially when Janna stays and shields the turret. It's too much HP to go through on a turret plate. We already got the one from before. If this turret plate was like half already, or it was like lower than half, then yeah, I'd go for it. But if it's a full HP turret plate, we already got the previous one recently, then we just reset here. And we already have hella gold to spend anyways. Unless it's something very important, like a very important item timing to buy. Even if I can't get the turret plate, maybe I could stay for another wave, but just good to take the good reset here. And as you can see, we have 131 farm, 504 at 13 minutes. And Ashe is at 96, 97, almost 100, so we're like 30 ahead. But as you can see, I mean, I haven't done anything too crazy this game, right? I'm not like making some insane plays or anything. I'm just playing macro and wave states and wave manipulation, farming really, really well. And I'm winning through that, and also playing around the map, or like the state of the map well, right? Like paying attention to the minimap, where junglers can be, where junglers are, what's happening on the map and stuff like that. And then responding to waves and situations like that accordingly is where much of the skill in League and higher elo will come from, not from being some insane micro player, right? That's why people like Dopa, for instance, have climbed really, really high and been rank 1 multiple times, even though they're not like some insane micro god, although his micro skills are obviously way better than 99% of League players, obviously. But sure, maybe he doesn't have insane micro, but you don't need insane micro to actually be a good player, right? Just has to be good enough to know the basics. Sure, sometimes missing abilities in late game team fights can be the win or the lose for you, which sucks, which is where micro can be important. But like I said before, high elo 25-minute average games, playing the map properly and the macro properly is important as well. Very, very important. So and yeah, at this point I see my Nautilus top. That means that the enemy team also knows Nautilus is top, so I have to be careful of, like, you know, getting Ashe ulted or something. But let's see, I wasn't even paying attention to the minimap because I was too busy talking about other stuff. Let's see, I know my junglers, or my my jungler is going top side, my support is top side, so I don't want to like overextend here and die. I think walking up like this maybe a little greedy, but I think I knew that I was fine regardless. Oh, excuse me. I think I realized Janna reset. Well, I wasn't paying attention to the minimap here. What was happening during this reset? I'm always looking at the minimap, right? Oh, I saw Janna reset. That's why. Okay, yeah. So I saw Ashe was staying, right? Then I see Janna take the reset. And then right, and then we saw Wukong here. So we saw Wukong here, and then we saw Ashe reset, right? So I was paying attention to this, so I knew this information, and so I knew I could walk up like this because only Ashe can be here, and she definitely can't 1v1 me, right? And so I walk up like this, get the control ward down, get a blue trinket, right? And although buying blue trinket, I probably could have waited on my blue trinket a little bit longer, because it's not, laning phase isn't over yet. Yellow trinket's still good at this stage. But I was pretty far ahead. I just bought it just out of habit. That's why I E forward here and go for this play, because I know that no one's going to be down here. And when I land the W on higher elo players, they always dodge like immediately down or up when you start channeling your ult. So that's why I don't ever throw it straight at them wherever they currently are. You either throw it a bit down or a bit up and just try to predict where they're moving. That's why, you know, if you see people, lower elo players, flaming you for missing your abilities or missing your ult, it's not because you are bad, it's because you are trying to predict a higher elo player's movement of whether they're going to dodge up or down, left or right, whatever, right? So I predicted down and she walked down and I hit it. If I would have just thrown it straight, I would have just missed, but I predicted her walking right into it, so that's good. Get a little bit more poke damage, but again, my Nautilus is top, Wukong is top, everyone's top side, and I am 1v2 bot lane, so I don't want to overextend here and do anything too crazy and give up a 950 gold shutdown to the enemy bot lane. So that's why we walked back here. We could take that trade because, again, Janna wasn't going to be back yet because we saw her reset, and Wukong wasn't bot, and their mid laner is chilling mid this whole game, so we don't have to worry about that. But we just want to play aggro here. That's why we're just chilling, farming, and letting my team win on the rest of the map. And yeah, so just it's important to know how to play on this side of the map as well, where you're not getting strong sided, still getting farmed up and still being useful. But now of course we see Janna mid, and I think this is where the game just gets forfeited. So that's why I threw a W there and kind of pressured the Ashe, because I know that I can go for a fight on her, but I'm still just focusing on farm. Don't know where Wukong is after all that happened. Could have come bot, but now I see my Nautilus coming bot, and yep, there's a Wukong. Janna's mid. She gave up. Wukong went back bot, but he's just on chickens, and my Nautilus is coming back down, so we can play aggro again and just go for poke, go for turret damage. We get the turret. We keep farming well. And just like that, at 15 minutes, I have 159 CS. And then we reset, and there's the surrender road. And yeah, that is the ideal, probably the most perfect way I could have played that laning phase in that game. There's not much else to be said about that. That's about as well as that could have gone in terms of how to play that specific game out. And the stats at the end of that one, we had 60% KP, 10.3 a minute. I was perfectly positioned to come into the mid game or late game to help my team out or try to carry if my team was behind, which they weren't. They were doing well. So yeah, I'd say that's a good a lot of good concepts in there to think about, or a lot of good concepts in there for me to talk about and for others to think about when they're playing their games. It's overwhelming. There's a lot that just takes practice and time to learn, and it just starts to come naturally to you. I've been playing this game for 10 years now at this point. I've only been playing ranked a lot for like 6 years, I think. Yeah, about 6 years is when I started playing ranked a lot more. I have a lot of experience with sort of the map and how rotations around the map and the waves, crashing waves and waves crashing into you, and when to freeze, when to push, and stuff like that. It's very dependent on, all I'll say is just the minimap. Just look at the minimap a lot, okay? That gives you so much information to play around in terms of where the enemy jungler is and what that means you can do in your lane as well. And there's a lot of little things, a lot of really small things that go into League that end up making big differences when you climb into higher elo, but hopefully some of that information was useful. Hopefully some of the item stuff I talked about was useful. And yeah, thanks for watching this video. Hope this was helpful. Again, I don't usually make these kinds of videos because I don't think I'm very good at making these kinds of videos personally. And honestly, I don't really like talking about this sort of stuff because whenever I hop on stream and like edit videos, I kind of like just making highlights and just chilling, you know, and just having a good time. I don't really focus too much on being educational streamer and talking about this sort of stuff, but every now and then I think it's useful to make these kinds of videos. And I've been getting asked a lot of questions about the new patch, new items, and I figured I'd throw a VOD review in there anyways because I had some pretty decent games on stream last time that I thought had some useful stuff to talk about. So anyways, that does it for me this video. Thank you all so much for watching my YouTube channel and hanging out in the streams. I appreciate it. As always, I will answer any questions in the comments and on my streams as usual. Again, usually I don't do educational stuff, but if someone has a question, I'll do my best to answer it as best I can. I can't usually go too in depth with stuff on stream because I'm trying to focus on games and trying to, like, I don't know, I just focus on streaming and stuff in general, focus on the league games. I can't like go in depth as I would when I do a recording like this on stuff, but I can give basic answers to some things probably. So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys on stream and in the next videos. Peace out.